Hi, I'm Lisa Leonard, Rotary District 7450's Public Image Chair. I happen to love Australia. I've been lucky enough to have gone 6 times already. Looking forward to my 7th when I attend the big convention in May in Melbourne. And I've assembled a few people to chat about it over the span of about 55 minutes. You're going to hear from some of the folks from the host organizing committee, as well as some others who are very involved in the Rotary world in Australia, and also some locals who just happen to live in Melbourne. They share what they love about it and why they think that we here in America should consider making the trip. Yes, it's a long plane flight, but I think it's worth it, and I hope you enjoy watching this Zoom, and I hope you'll consider attending the convention at the end of May 2023.
Rotary friends, having the Rotary International Convention in Melbourne in May 2023 is a very exciting opportunity, not only for those living around and near Melbourne, but also for every Rotarian in our zone, as it provides a great opportunity to meet Rotarians from around the world and appreciate the internationality of what Rotary represents. For many, it may also provide the most tangible and cost-effective opportunity to attend and volunteer for an international convention. Rated as the world's most livable city year after year, you will enjoy what we take for granted: marvelous Melbourne, a beautiful, vibrant and cosmopolitan city, made up of people from all over the world, from our original indigenous inhabitants, the world's oldest civilization, to more recent migrants from countries in Europe, Asia and Africa. You will feel welcome from the moment you arrive. Home to Australia's first Rotary Club, Melbourne is also home to some of the world's most innovative minds, pushing the boundaries of science, technology and art to create ideas that change our world. Set on the shores of picturesque Port Phillip Bay, the southernmost city of mainland Australia, it is rich in aesthetics, with its beauty enhanced by the meandering Yarra River, immaculate parks and gardens, public art, classical buildings and innovative design. It is truly a city of endless potential, where big thinking and great ideas can reach their full potential. All we have to do now is imagine what Rotary can achieve in 2023 in this great city of opportunity.
So now I'd like to officially welcome our 2 main guest Australians. So would you please help me welcome Peter Ward from the Rotary Club of the Entrance, and then also we have Dennis Shore, who is actually from the host organizing committee for the Melbourne Convention. So I suppose if just due to the time limitations, Dennis, if you don't mind, we'll just ask you to give a brief introduction of yourself and then a quick overview from your perspective of what we have to look forward to with this upcoming convention.
Yes, so I'm Dennis Shore. I'm the one of 2 vice chairs of the HOC. But I'm also the promotions director, which is why I'm here to promote. I'm a past governor in one of the 5 districts who are the host districts for the convention. But I'm proud to say that the convention sits within our district boundaries. So I'm claiming bragging rights there. So it's 30 years since we had a convention in Melbourne last. Which was a very successful convention when Cliff Docterman was the RI president. And this time we have an equally famous president, I think, in Jennifer Jones. And we're looking forward to putting on, from a host organization point of view, the best convention that we have, that we can have. So I think one of the things you were looking to find out is what other opportunities there are apart from the convention, which we all know will be great. It's in 2 great venues, but don't worry about the distance between the 2 of them, because we've got that covered. In fact, we've got you covered in getting around anywhere, because you'll get a free transport pass, which will take you in all the areas of Melbourne, not outside of Melbourne, but anywhere you want to go in Melbourne. And Melbourne is very compact from a sightseeing point of view. And we have this amazing tram network, streetcars, whatever you want to call them, that can get you pretty much anywhere in a pretty quick amount of time. So I think somewhere you've got hold of, or you're going to show the host organisation committee website.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so
Peter will be doing that. Do you want him to go to the PowerPoint now?
Look, it's not necessarily. The main point I want to say is that you can go there and see two things that are relevant to this meeting. First of all, the opportunity to go to the host hospitality events. So there are a number of those. And the other one is tours. And we have put together a curated package of day tours around Melbourne, tours around Victoria, tours around Australia, and even tours to New Zealand. Now, if you've got a large group coming, of course, you may be in a position where you can organise your own tour opportunities so that you can specifically curate it for the time that you've got available and to visit the points that you want to do. Australia is a big country, Lisa, as you know. It's about the same size as mainland USA. On the other hand, Victoria is very compact. It's only about 3% of the land mass. So that puts it about the same size in area as Utah, roughly similar to California, but only about a third of Texas. But hey, we've got bigger states than Texas, but we won't have that argument. And Victoria is blessed by a huge variety of scenery and opportunities. So really easy to get around. If you've only got time to base yourself in Melbourne, you can do day tours out of Melbourne, overnight tours out of Melbourne. Everyone wants to go and see the fairy penguins, which you can do in a day, but they only come out at dusk. So you'll be coming back in the dark, of course. There's also the 12 apostles, which, well, there used to be 12, but there's probably about 10 and a half at the moment. So you've got that sort of thing, and you've got two or three magnificent cities, especially Bendigo and Ballarat, an easy day trip from Melbourne, and those are splendid places. At Ballarat, they have Sovereign Hill, which is a reproduction of the gold mining period in Ballarat, and it's well worth a trip, whatever your age. Look, I could go on, but those things are there, and happy to provide any other information or try and respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Dennis. I would like for Peter Ward to introduce himself quickly, and then also if you would start your PowerPoint, Peter, because I think that will help us understand better what's planned for the convention, some of the logistical issues about locations and transport, and then we can continue with some Q&A. So Peter, if you want to just share or introduce yourself and then share your screen, that would be great.
Look, thanks, Lisa, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. It sort of proves you can't hide in this world anymore. So Lisa knew Michael, Michael knew me, here I am. So the power of Rotary around the world is always interesting. I'm from District 9685, so that's a district on the north side of Sydney, so about 600 miles north of north of Melbourne. And I get to go to Melbourne occasionally. So both for work and for holidays and for conferences and other events. And it's probably, I'd say, probably the most cosmopolitan or European style city we have in Australia. Let me get a screen share going. I've got a couple of slides that I want to run through. As Dennis said, and great to have Dennis on the call because he knows stuff. I just hear about stuff. Dennis knows stuff. It's across two locations, and we'll talk about those locations. I've also got a couple of slides around information sources for you. But just generally, why would you go to this convention more than any other convention? And look, I'd encourage everyone to talk to members of your clubs, of your district that you know that have been to conventions previously, because they're always personal stories about what did you get out of it? Why did you go? Why should I go? It's always personal stories. But for me, the simple reason to go to the Melbourne convention is because it's RI President Jennifer Jones. I've had the privilege of attending a number of events with Jennifer, and she is one of the most amazing and inspiring leaders I've seen in Rotary. And you know, I've had the privilege, I guess, as many of the past district governors have, of meeting many of the other district governors and presidents. Jennifer is really outstanding in how she presents the messages she presents and how she equips people. So I'm really confident that this is going to be a very special convention. So for no other reason, go because we know it's going to be good. We don't have, to my knowledge, a list of the speakers and program details yet. So that's a little bit about watch this space. But the other information source I'd point you at is the Rotarian magazine. And I believe this month in December, they were doing an article to encourage people to attend the convention. I know they were doing that in our Rotary Down Under magazine, so the Australia version of the Rotarian. I believe that they were also doing that in the US. And I believe there has been and will be progressive articles about what's going on at the convention. So I'd encourage you to look that up and spend time going through that. I know also in Australia, we receive some regular updates, email updates around the convention that's coming up from the organising committee. So that may also assist in the US for information about what's going on with the convention. So convention, it's a done deal. Everyone's got to go. It's going to be good. You should be there. That's easy. Why Melbourne? As I said, it's an interesting city. Like Dennis said, it's very compact, which is nice. There is some really good areas around the CBD, Lygon Street, St Kilda, etc. Great food. It's a very multicultural city. I'm not sure if it's still the case, but it certainly did have the largest density of Greek nationalities outside of Greece. So it's had a long history of being multicultural. And it's become really interesting in the Central Business District. It's certainly got more life in the Central Business District than Sydney has at night. And there's lots of really interesting areas, alleyways, etc., to explore with food, with shopping, with different things going on. So it is an interesting city to visit and to spend time in. And it's an easy city to spend time in. So if I can flick to another slide.
Yeah.
Talking about venues here. So I said we've got two venues. We've got the Rod Laver Arena, which is where the plenary sessions are being held. And then we've got the Melbourne Convention Centre, which is where the breakouts and House of Friendship are being held. And that might sound a little daunting, but it's not, because if I can move my mouse around and you can see, this is where the Central Business District is for Melbourne. And a lot of the accommodation is sort of around that area as well. This is the Rod Laver Arena, which is where the plenaries are being held. And then the convention centre is further up the Yarra River in this sort of area. So all very close. The point being, the centres are also close to where the nightlife is and to where the accommodation is.
So Peter, I want to interrupt for a second, if I may. What
Sure.
kind of time and travel time would we need to get from a plenary to a breakout session?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because on this slide, 20-minute tram ride between the two venues or a 30-minute walk is what we're being told. So once again, that would no doubt be taken into account in the scheduling of the program as well. And as Dennis said, all public transport and certainly the public transport around the CBD area. If you can see the mouse roof, that's really the CBD area there. Convention centres there, Rod Laver Arenas down here. All public transport is free. South Bank, which is down in this area, is a bit of the sort of the new entertainment area in Melbourne as well. I stayed down in South Bank before. Jump on a tram. You're in the next little spot you want to go to very quickly, very easy. I was impressed with how easy it is. So if I can make it work, anyone can make it work. And then obviously, through the organising committee and the arrangements with hotels, there's a lot of specific arrangements with the individual hotels in terms of getting to and from the event and accommodation as well, which you can explore as you book your accommodation. Speaking of which, there's a number of websites that I want to draw your attention to. One is the RI Convention website. And this information, Lisa's got this information, and happy for it all to be shared around and for you to use it to promote through your clubs and districts as well. And there is quite a lot of other information available. There's a lot of little podcasts from various speakers and things that are available. So if you want more information, we can always flood you with information. But this is the main convention website. So this is the RI Convention website. You'd be familiar with that if you've been to previous ones. Houston was on there for last year. For this year, am I in 2022? So this year, etc. So, and this is important because you register through this website. So you register for the convention is through the RI Convention website. But also there's a link to travel and accommodation. And in that accommodation link, there's a list of, I'd guess, 30, maybe more hotels there where there's been an arrangement made. So, identified to a whole pile of hotels that you can look at. There's also then information about program sponsors, etc. there. So I'd encourage that as your first point of call for website, certainly to register. And one of the reasons I'm speaking to you today, because there's an early bird registration, which closes on the 15th. So you've got a week to get your conference registration done and save some money, which will pay for some accommodation or some meals or whatever else you might want to happily spend your money on. But it's encouraged to register early. We do have, I think, somewhat over 8,000 registrations already. And I think the committee's sort of budgeting on around the 25,000. So, so that speaks to the internationality of the event as well. Another reason to go, the big world of Rotary, seeing what Rotary is around the world and meeting people and being able to make relationships and contacts and look about how you might partner on projects. All those sort of things come through the internationality. So RI Convention website, first point of call, register, and there is accommodation information there. I'd also encourage you, many of you might be familiar with some of the other accommodation apps on your phones, What If or Trivago or Booking.com, etc. So they're also good avenues to book accommodation. The second website I wanted to make you aware of is the website that Dennis mentioned, which is the Host Organising Committee website. So this is a screenshot of part of that website, and on here, why I'd had this one up for our In Australia promotion was the opportunity to volunteer, but also down the bottom there, latest news on what's going on the website. And I'll come back to this website because I actually want to open it up. And then the third source is the Facebook page. So there's a Facebook page where you'll see updates of what's going on. There's the Host Committee website, which is what's going on in Australia. And then there's the RI Convention website, which is the registration, first point of call for accommodation, etc. And the why you would book, once again, 15th of December. So let me turn that off, bear with me, Let me turn that screen off and bring up another screen. Bring this website up. So this is the host website. So Dennis would be all across this one. This is what it looks like when you go into it. Beneath it, it's got, as I said, the volunteering and sponsoring, but it's also got links to events and tours. And these are the two links that I wanted you to be aware of and to go and pursue. So as Dennis said, there are a number of different add-on events that the host committee is organising. There's a night at the museum. There's Streets of Melbourne, so food in Southwell. There's events around the Melbourne Cup. So many of you would be maybe would be familiar with the Melbourne Cup. But anyway, so I'd encourage you to have a look at this in terms of additional activities that are there supporting the conference and giving that you can attend. But also the other one I want to just make you aware of was the tours website or tours page, which is what Dennis had mentioned. Come on. Here we go. So there are 4 or 5 pages of different tours and events to entertain you around and outside the conference. So I'd encourage you to go and explore. As Dennis said, Victoria is small. By Australian standards, Victoria is small. What did you say? Something like 3% of the land masses, probably a little bit more, but it's small. So everywhere is accessible. But there really is some spectacular things to go and do. I mean, the Great Ocean Road and the 12 Apostles is just a fabulous piece of coastline, which I love and I keep on going back to. But great things to go and do in Melbourne. So adding another week, another 2 weeks, another 3 months to your trip is, we can entertain you all the way. I've worked with a lot of people out of the US. I've worked in US multinational companies, traveled to the US quite a bit, and everyone I talk to that either wants to go to Australia or wants to come back to Australia because they've been here before. So highly encouraged to come and visit us, but come and meet us at the convention as well, because we know the convention will be spectacular. There's certainly a committed team putting together. We've done it. We had the Sydney convention a couple of years ago, and that was very successful. A lot of learning, a lot of experience in putting on conventions, which was translated through to Melbourne. So highly encouraged to come along. Anytime we can spend time answering questions, talking to your members, happy to get on board and do any of that. But at this point, I'll hand it back to Lisa.
Excellent.
Thanks for your time.
Of course. Thank you very much, Peter Ward. And if you would stop your screen share, please, I would like to share the video. Here we go.
Don't have sound on it.
Ah.
1, 2, 3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine, life is good. I'm doing fine, 10, gonna do it right and do it again, yeah. I look into the sky with all the beautiful color, but there's more than just for me, so gonna share it with another. I got to show, to give, let out, I want to sing and shout. Take a look and see a beautiful morning that turns into a beautiful evening, and together make a beautiful life. And if you wanna see, then come along with me, that's right. And if you wanna go tomorrow, it's pretty simple, gotta find a way to follow. And if you do, you have a future real bright. And it's a combination of consistency. Come on, say oh, 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 oh. Come on, come on, come on and sing, yeah. Come on, come on, come on and sing. Oh, 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 oh. Come on, come on, come on and sing, yeah. Come on, come on, come on and sing. Come on, come on, come on and sing, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Peter. I want to get back to Dennis before he has to take off. And what I wanted to say for those who have never been to a convention is they're wonderful. But I think most everybody here in the audience has been to conventions. So that's, you all know that already. I want to ask I want to have Dennis come back on, and I'm going to ask you a very pointed question, Dennis, as you are from the host organizing committee. It's going to be what, a day of travel for those of us here in the northeast of the USA to get to Australia, to get to this convention in Melbourne. Let me ask you why, or how will it be worth it? What's your response to that?
Well, look, it's like everything, isn't it? Why do we travel in the first place? We go and see something different. The great thing about coming here, it's different, but it's sort of the same. You won't have a language problem, but you will see something that is quite different to what you're used to seeing. The whole flora and fauna, you've mentioned the koala, but of course we've got the kangaroos. Yeah. There you are. And by the way, a koala is not a bear. So
right.
People talk to them about being koala bears, but they're not a bear, they're a marsupial. And so is a kangaroo. But anyhow, so there's plenty of opportunities if that's your thing, if nature is what you're about. And I don't know, everyone has different things that they want to do. I personally like culture. Everyone, when they go to another city, what do? They go to museums. Well, now we fixed the museum because the welcome event that you can go to, we're taking over the entire Melbourne Museum, and it's the biggest museum in the Southern Hemisphere. You know what happens at a lot of Rotary events, and one thing we're desperate to ensure is that everyone has enough to eat and drink, but you can go to all the areas of the museum, and there you are, you have a potted history of Australia, but also Melbourne in particular. Now, Melbourne benefited from a lot of gold that was discovered in the 1850s. And for a time, Australia was by far and away the richest country in the world because of the gold. And the benefit of that is that we have a lot of beautiful public buildings, and behind me is the State Library. Now you say, why would I go to a library? I can read books anywhere. Go to the library. This is the most magnificent building that you could possibly imagine. And whether you're into reading or not, just go and take it in. In the library, we have the armour worn by Ned Kelly. Now, you probably don't know who Ned Kelly was, but he's a folk hero in Australia. He was ultimately hanged for crimes against the state. And you can go to the jail where he was hanged. You can see the scaffold and all of that sort of thing. You can go to the cell that he was in, all those sorts of things. But it's local history, but it's interesting. It's really interesting. So there's a lot of stuff like that. Melbourne is the centre of Australian culture. We have 2 art galleries that are beyond amazing. And again, they're free to go into, so just go in and look around. You don't have to worry about what's actually in there, although we've got, you know, Rembrandts, all that sort of stuff, but a lot of local Australian art too, which we think is magnificent. So you've got that sort of thing. We've mentioned food. We pride ourselves on the foodie capital of Australia. Our coffee. Now, I know a lot of Americans aren't necessarily into the coffee culture, but here, literally, you cannot go more than a few steps, and you're at the next coffee shop. And it's not just the coffee; it's what goes with it. So it is different in that way. And so, as I say, I urge you to enjoy the difference, but the sameness in the sense that nearly everyone will speak English. All the street signs are in English. As I said before, getting around is so easy, and it's a safe city to get around. I mean, I won't deny that, like Melbourne's 5 million plus people, so it's a big city. But the central business district is compact. It's well laid out. As I say, trams are there everywhere. So look, but if there are any specific questions, happy to deal with them.
Why don't we do that now then? We'll just open up if anybody just wants to unmic and unmute, and let's hear your question. that would be great. We only have Dennis for about 10 more minutes.
Are there specific places you recommend for bird watching?
Not that I can specifically recommend, but again, I'm glad you asked the question, because we have different birds. And you've only got to go on a tram or a train, suburban train, and you can be in, for example, the forests around Dandenong, which is Dandenong Ranges, which is just at the edge of the city, and you could be in the middle of nowhere, and there's lots of bird watching there. But I will make a note to find out some references for bird watching, and I'll come back to Lisa and she can share that information. Bird watching, hiking, all of those things, lots and lots of areas you can go. And if you go to the Melbourne Convention Host Organisation Committee Facebook page, you'll find lots of references there to places you can do that. And I'll add something on bird watching as well.
Very nice. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Peter.
Dennis, have an interest in doing like a week-long or a 3 to 4 day bicycle tour? Or is that something that you would do in Melbourne or on the coast road, or where would one go bicycling in Australia? Well,
the answer is anywhere, and much to the chagrin of a lot of car drivers, they're in a process of converting Melbourne to a bike city. So within the CBD, you'll find this most peculiar parking arrangement where cars seem to be parked out in the middle of the road, and that's so that they can build bike lanes next to the sidewalks. And the reason they did that is that dooring is a real problem. You know, people open their car doors while bike riders are going by and they take them out. So
number one problem. Yep.
Yeah, so they've done this, and look, it works from a cyclist point of view, but you can also cycle pretty much. There are cycling tracks, and you can go for tens of kilometres. By the way, we're in kilometres in Australia, so if you do happen to drive, and we drive on the other side of the road to you guys, so so just watch your speedo to make sure that you're doing it right. So anyhow, that aside, there are literally hundreds of kilometres of bike tracks throughout Melbourne. And if you want to go further afield, of course, you can do that, and it's quite popular. I have one of my Rotary colleagues in my club is very keen to offer the services of a company in Melbourne that hosts bike riding tours, mainly around the city area. But lots and lots of tourists are taking up this. They like the idea. They go and explore Melbourne on bikes, and they'll rent you a bike and all of that. So, Peter, details of bike.
I was just thinking, bike riding around Port Phillip Bay would be really interesting.
Yes.
So Melbourne's on the top of Port Phillip Bay. Port Phillip Bay is what, 90 miles long or something like that? It's a big bay. So bike riding around the edge of the bay would be really interesting.
Yeah, and you can do that.
If I can just top in, there is an around the bay cycle. There's a bike track right up through to the Dandenong Mountains, which overlook Melbourne. And then there are bike tracks which go right into the countryside as far as the gold areas. So you can really choose your own cycle track of where you want to go. And if you really want to challenge, there's the Three Peaks Challenge, which takes you to the snowfields. So there's quite a few different options, Peter. Big cycling community here in Melbourne.
Can I just say I'm very grateful to all of the Australians who are here right now, because it's like we are getting customized travel tour information and guidance, which I don't know that other Rotarians are getting right now because they are not here at our Zoom, which I'm so glad we could pull together. And thank you all for participating. It's been like we're getting insider information, right, from the locals, which is the best. So thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing. Do we need to say goodbye to you, Dennis? Because if so,
I've got 5 minutes.
All right, then. Why don't
So
we?
if anyone's interested in golf, I would imagine Dennis is the man to speak to as well. by the sound of it.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. On the Friday before the convention, Ian Risley, who's the chairman of the Rotary Foundation Trustees, is organising a golf day at one of Melbourne's magnificent Sanderbelt courses. And most people will say that the best golf courses are in Melbourne. And indeed, that's probably true. But so on the Friday, there is a golf day being organised. There is a fee because it's raising money for the Rotary Foundation Polio Plus program. But nevertheless, it's an opportunity to play on one of the premier courses here. There's 2 sessions, AM and PM. So I believe. So there's an opportunity for the golfers.
All right, Dennis, in a word, how would you describe Vegemite, which is something that all the Americans should try if they haven't yet?
Yes, look, it's one of those things that you probably got to be try from birth. It's different, and most Americans probably find it challenging. It's a yeast extract, but it's extremely good for you, rich in vitamins and things like that. So, but yes, in fact, that's a great idea. I think we must organise a booth somewhere where people can go and try Vegemite. The trick to Vegemite, though, is in small proportions.
Yeah,
you
don't
see
spread it as thickly as we would do a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Oh, no. Just a smear, I think, is the way to do it. And so you might develop it's a savoury flavour, I suppose. Yeah. And you will find that in general things are less sweet in Australia than they are in the United States. So even though sugar is a product here, but generally speaking, but in terms of sweetness, Vegemite is not.
All right. Any closing comments from you, Dennis, before you take off?
Look, just to say how pleased I am to be invited to be part of your group here this morning. And Peter can give you a link. I'm happy offline to field any specific questions that you may have. And I just mentioned something that's not on the website yet in terms of event opportunities. There will be a game of Australian football, Australian rules football, that you can go to on the Friday. We don't have the fixture details yet, but as soon as they are, we'll publish. And most Americans have absolutely no idea what's going on, but neither do a lot of Australians. So, but it is a fast and furious match with amazing athleticism. And I would recommend anybody go, and assuming it's at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which is a multi-purpose stadium. This is the biggest stadium, I think, in the world, or very close to it. It can seat 100,000 people. And so the atmosphere of being there is something special. And you'll enjoy the opportunity and the spectacle of it all. And who knows, you might even become a convert to the game.
All right. On that, we will say thank you very much, Dennis Shore from the
All
Host
right. The sun's out.
Committee.
The
Yes.
golf course is beckoning, and I must
enjoy
away.
your day. We'll see you in Melbourne. Peter, is there anything else that you'd like to say in response? And then I'd love to open the floor also to our other visitors from the Melbourne area. Peter.
I think Maria knows all about Vegemite, judging by the watching the screen. Perfect on toast with avocado. We grow avocados as well.
Yes, avocados.
Good meal.
Balances that flavour out, Peter, doesn't it? As does buttered toast.
With a little Vegemite on it. Yeah.
Yeah, like a quarter of a teaspoon, I would go.
All right. Maria, would
think
you mind just saying a few words? Where are you from and why?
I'm from a suburb called Brighton, and Brighton is about 20 minutes by train from the CBD. And our claim to fame is that we are a beachside suburb, and we have these what they call the bathing boxes, which have been around for over 100 years. And I happen to have one, and always welcome Rotarians from overseas to come and visit with us. But that's also an area that is a good cycling area, Peter, along the there's actual bike path and then footpaths, walking paths, and you can, if you have like a couple of hours and you know what you're doing, you can, as a cyclist, you can come along from the city and go along that that pathway, and you'll go past bathing boxes and past what we call we have an art walk where some of the early Australian plein air artists were painting. And from there, you can actually go past, you can have lunch at the sailing club, and a couple of sailing clubs that you don't need to be members to turn up into their like coffee shop. Brighton Sailing Club has a lovely cafe, and you can sit out over the yachts, and then you can cycle down to Sandringham Yacht Club, where I think Ian Risley's a member down there as well. So there's quite a bit on the water side of Melbourne for you to enjoy.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Maria, for sharing that. Aviv, is there anything that you would like to add that hasn't yet been mentioned, or would you like to reiterate anything that has been mentioned? And also tell everybody where you are from, please.
Sure, thanks, Lisa. I'm from Melbourne, obviously Rotary Passport Melbourne, and I live in Caulfield, which is one suburb away from Maria. And essentially, it's a great opportunity to talk to a few people about why Melbourne and why the convention. And conventions, anybody's been, and perhaps everybody's been to a convention, obviously give us an opportunity to do a heck of a lot of learning and networking, which is fantastic. But I think when it comes to Melbourne, it's a very livable city. It's a very friendly city, very approachable, and very easy to navigate. So having attended Houston earlier this year, Houston was also a very friendly place to be in. And it really is a combination of the friendship that you create, the environment that you're in, and the impact we can create afterwards. I think that it's great to have the convention here. And we do know it's a long trip. We're fairly isolated, which is part of the attraction of coming to Australia. That's why we are so unique, both in terms of the sites that you'll see and obviously the animals you'll meet. But I think that when it comes to being here, there's going to be more things to do than you'll have time in the day. There's just so many opportunities of doing different things, whether it's in the city, whether it's just an hour or 2 hours away. Everything's pretty close by, and yet sufficient distance. You will not feel that people are on top of each other because we have a lot more land than people, and that makes it very, very easy. But no matter where you go, you'll find very, very friendly people. Certainly the people in the countryside. The cuisine is quite different. It's very international. It's very cosmopolitan. You could find obviously every nationality because we're a cultural melting pot here in Australia. Being a country that's just 200 years old, you can imagine everybody came from somewhere fairly recently, a number of generations ago. And of course, we've got a lot of different homegrown cuisine as well. If you like wine, as we discussed earlier, if you like the coffee, for some reason, we've become the coffee capital of the world. So it really ticks a lot of different elements as far as giving satisfaction for spending those 24 hours getting here on a plane. But I think above all, obviously having a convention in town is going to just drive up the atmosphere, which is fantastic, and allow us to connect with as many people as possible and continue those connections, continue that impact, and magnify what we do.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Michael McQuillan, quick note. When I was in the Rotary Club in New Jersey, we hosted a GSE team, a group study exchange team from Australia, led by this man, Michael McQuillan, who's in the Sydney suburbs. That's how we met. We've stayed in touch. Renee, I know you know Evan Burrell. He was on that GSE team as well. In any case, I reached out to Michael saying, hey, do you know any Australians involved in the convention? And let's put a Zoom together. So thank you, Michael, for making this happen. And thank you again, Peter and Dennis. So great. And the other guests from Melbourne. It's been lovely. So anyway, Michael, hey, how are you, friend?
Fantastic, Lisa. Great to see you on the screen. I mean, I'm from Sydney. Of course, we've got the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge, but Melbourne is a fantastic city to go exploring. It's so walkable, so friendly, great cafes, restaurants, parks, and the culture down there, as they were talking about earlier, there's plenty of museums and libraries. I've been in that library. It is fantastic. So come on down, enjoy it. You get great value for money. A US dollar buys almost $1.50 Aussie. So our $4 cup of coffee will cost you less than $3. It's a great time of year. I will be there. I've booked and paid, and I hope to see many of you down there.
Wonderful, Michael. Thank you for that. May I share with you some of what I love about Australia? And I know I'm making a really big generalization, but as I said, I've been there 6 times. I think I've gotten a nice cross-section of experiences and met a whole lot of people. I describe in general the Australian people and the culture as very happy and relaxed. That expression, no worries, mate, which they say all the time, I really think that is like a lifestyle. At least that's my observation as an American. We've now started to incorporate that expression into our vernacular, no worries. But I first heard it, a million years ago on my first trip to Australia, and it seems like you guys just live and breathe that. Would you say that's pretty accurate? Relatively hardworking, but relatively chill, and like you enjoy life. You're going to your golf courses, you're enjoying your sailing, etc. So I love that. The natural beauty, the scenery is some of the most breathtaking I've ever seen. And the wildlife, and of course, not just the stuffed ones, but the real koalas, the kangaroos, the snakes. We don't have to talk about the crazy poisonous snakes, which you all have in Australia, but you've got wombats and the echidna, like the porcupine, and fascinating birds that make these beautiful noises, and the fauna as well. It's really just a special place. So those are some of my favorite things about Australia. I hope this Zoom tonight has inspired you all to consider going. Any other questions before we wrap up?
I'd probably, it pains me to say, because I live north of Sydney, so I'm a Sydney person, if you like. It pains me to say that Melbourne really is the events capital of Australia. They do it very well. And I think we're just nice people. I think you summed up a little bit of that, no worries. But I mean, the thing that's always struck me is we're a very innovative country as well. We're small in terms of population. We're very clever in terms of science and technology. And part of that's because we're remote, because we haven't had the population and necessarily the dollars. We're better at getting stuff done on a budget, maybe. And so you'll see lots of signs of creativity, whether it's in technology or whether it's in art or whatever.
All right.
A lot to be said for us. Good people to come and visit. So we'd love to see you and meet you.
Wonderful. We look forward to that. And it looks like Francie has made the decision to go, and that's really great news. Francie, I'm glad you are excited. I'm going to put Aviv on the spot here. If you don't, great, Francie. Is there anything in particular that sealed the deal for you, Francie?
I think just all of it.
Great.
Hearing it's a walkable city. This is close. And I think this #1 seller was hearing all the Australian accents, but I got to go.
All right. And speaking of the accent, and that's exactly why I wanted to I wanted to ask Aviv, can we just ask you, please, Aviv, to come on and give us the correct pronunciation of your fair city? Because I know in America, we read it as we think it's supposed to be said, which is Melbourne. And I'd like to hear you say it instead.
It's Melbourne.
Say it again, please.
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
That's right. You got to say it the Aussie way, Melbourne. But if you say Melbourne, we'll know what you mean, but Melbourne. So like a BERN on the end, if you like, Melbourne. And we're pretty casual about that sort of stuff, so we're not going to be hung up about it. And to hear Peter Ward from the entrance say that, although he's from Sydney or just north of, giving Melbourne a compliment, that's terrific too, because there's this big city rivalry, as there are in many countries, between the big city and the smaller sister that is Melbourne. But the cities have very different character, and that's the wonderful thing about Australia, that everybody does have a different character. And Fancy, you've made the right decision, because I think when you get here, you'll like it even better than what you've heard today, because what you hear on Zoom is not the same as feeling it and touching it and smelling it. And Melbourne's got a really, I'm not selling Melbourne, but it's really got a culture and an atmosphere and energy that is quite unique. It's a green city. There's lots of trees and parks everywhere. You were seen on that slide that Peter Wood had earlier, that how many green spaces there were around the city. It's known as the Garden State. It's just got a great energy about it. So I think I've not met anybody who's been to Melbourne and has not loved it, just because of all the facets that it has. And I know that if any of you are still sitting on the fence, if you make the commitment, you won't regret it. And I really want to thank you, Lisa, for organising this, because it sounds like a bit of a sales pitch. It's not. It's just an ability to share something. And thank you for giving us the opportunity. It's really quite unique. And I know lots of people want to come to Australia, but having an opportunity like this, as I wrote in the chat, I think is just a great opportunity. And if any other clubs want to put any of us Aussies in front of their team, and I'm quite sure, I'm speaking on everybody's behalf, I'm quite sure we'd be happy to make ourselves available, because this is really going to be a great opportunity for Rotarians to experience Australia.
I agree, and that's a nice offer. So I'll put that in an email and share that with some of my Rotary friends. So thank you for that. Speaking about the casualness, the casual nature of Australia, I think one of my final questions I wanted to hear your response to is like, do we have to worry about our fashion and being very formal? Because it seems that you are not so hung up on attire in that regard, right?
We are definitely not hung up on attire. I doubt very much you'll see anybody wearing a suit and tie, unless it's a formal occasion that requires it. We are pretty cool about the whole thing. We go by people's first names. Most people have nicknames. You call them somebody. So I don't know what Peter and Michael might be, but quite often if you become friendly, it's Pete and Mike. But quite honestly, in Australia, people are very, very casual. We're not hung up on a lot of things. And I think that's what makes Australia the friendly country, that we are very, very casual. You can really wear whatever you feel comfortable and not get judged, because that's just how everybody is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something to consider.
And that's being said, with him living in Melbourne, which is the fashion capital of Australia as well, the clothes, etc., come out of Melbourne much better than any other city. So it is a fashion capital as well.
Good point. Yeah. So, right. If you want some high fashion, if you want to do some boutique shopping, it's there and very available for you. But it's, I think, day to day, it's people are not really buttoned up in suit and tie type people, I think, generally.
Be who you are. That's exactly
Be who
right.
you are. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
And we haven't mentioned shopping at all.
No, right? Because there's a million other
great things. Shopping. Who knows?
But then back to Michael McQuillan's point about the exchange rate being in our favor. Certainly you could buy some nice little souvenirs and some mementos from the trip. Yeah, okay. Well, it's 7:59 here p.m. We promised a 1-hour experience, and I hope you've all gotten something out of it. I recorded most of it. I missed the first few minutes, but I'll post it to share with those who were not able to be here tonight. And any final thoughts from anybody from the US or Australia?
Real quick, just as the governor of 7450, I really appreciate all of the Australian friends being on here. I'm glad you sold it so well. I am looking forward to the trip, and I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you very much.
And thanks, David, for giving me the green light for being able to coordinate this. So it was what I think it was helpful, and I hope it helps others who get to watch the recording.
It's been fun. I'll mention for Bob, so I just thought of it. There, as you know, there's the Rotary interest groups. There's a proper name for them. But there's a sailing one, for example, and there is great sailing on Port Phillip Bay. And so
yeah,
look at the interest groups as well, and then make some contacts about things you might want to do down here through the interest groups as well.
Also the motorcycling Rotarians.
There's that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Lisa, thank you so much. This was really a wonderful occasion. Folks from Australia, thanks for being here.
You're welcome, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all for coming. And again, I'll save the recording. I will share it and really appreciate the Australians, appreciate the Pennsylvanians and everybody. It was really lovely. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. So I shall take my koala and wish you all a good day. And by the way, this is a photo of me with my very first koala that I ever held.
Very cool.
I can't wait to go back. So, all right, be well, everybody.
Good day.
Look forward to seeing you in 6 months.
Good night.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks again. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.